The fact that they're getting aggressive with it now and appealing this when they should have done, and again, this ruling came out in January.
Collusion.
You had months. You had months to try and figure this thing out. The only reason now they're having to get on the offensive when it comes to this is because the information got out. If Pablo Torre hadn't gotten a hold of the transcripts from what had happened, none of this probably takes place. It's the NFLPA, again, trying to save face because it's an awful look.
And that's called espionage. I mean, there's all kinds of different words that are being used for this. It's big business. There's big business here. The owners stand to lose some of their bottom line, a major part of their bottom line. Some, these franchises are facing being put in different positions. In terms of, we've heard Q say, listen, you do a fully guaranteed contract, that contract apparently has to be placed in escrow. You got to have the money for that contract up front and ready to go. I would assume, how many times can you do a fully guaranteed contract if that's the case and you're an NFL franchise? How many times do you want to do that where you have to commit what? If we're talking about these types of deals, they're only going to be with the elite players. So you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that you're having to commit to this one player, and you have to have that money together. It has to be there. So I think it causes some complications for the structure that exists for the NFL. And for what it's worth, you have to be able – I know the whole antitrust and – no monopolies on business and stuff like that. So they can only do things a certain type of way before it goes down the lane of being colluding and stuff like that. And you can't do it. But they're a business. They're businesses. They're privately owned businesses. And if you're going to have conversations about how you can improve your bottom line, wouldn't you say that applies to 100% of the businesses that are out there? You're going to try to figure out what the proper business approach is. You're going to see how you can manage your hard costs and your expenses. You're always trying to impact your bottom line. That is something that you learn if you're doing business and you're learning business, or you live in the real world. If you're going to get a new contract at your job, you have to understand, where do you fit within that company's structure and how does that impact their bottom line?
If I'm a player, I'm pissed. I'm looking at this going, hold on.
No, you're being let down. You're not. You are the commodity that makes all of this work.
Of course.
But you're not the most important. Obviously, you're not the most important driving force in terms of the thought process or the approach of how hard should you push for certain things to get approved.
Like, shouldn't you be on our side? That would be my thought as a player. I'd be like, well, hold on a second. You know that this is something we should have appealed, and you're conspiring with owners to try and keep it from us? I'm pissed. I'm looking around, and as a former player, doesn't it make you question everything? Like, when you were in the league, wait a second. So what was going on back then?
If I'm being honest, I never trusted the PA. I never trusted them. I never really worked with them. And I made sure that I kept my own affairs, close to the vest as much as I could. Like, if you recall my rookie year, I didn't sign the group licensing agreement. A lot of people don't realize that, but I didn't sign, the first year that I was in the league. They didn't have me on the video game. They didn't have me on Madden. I was just player 56. Didn't have Arrington. And trader cards and jerseys. They were selling my jersey. They were selling trader cards, and I sued. And I won. Because they weren't – my whole thing was – and this is pre-NIL, but I understood NIL. And my whole thing was, if you're going to use my name, image, and likeness, and you're grouping me with all of these other people, I want to know that my interest is being represented properly, for one. And for two, I want to know what you're doing with my brand.
Right.
You could be – I don't know what your markets are or the pockets of where my relevancy lied as a player. outside of Pennsylvania at the time and where I got drafted to in Washington. But you're going to give me a residual check. When I get that residual check, I don't really know what you've done other than jersey sales or, card sales, whatever it may be. I don't know how you're using my name, image, and likeness, how often you're using it, where you're using it. I don't know all of these things, and you're not explaining these things clearly, so I'm not going to sign this contract. I'm not going to sign my rights away to you guys, and that's the NFLPA. And they still did it. Like, they still released my jersey. They were still selling cars. So that's when I knew, like, it's really about, at the end of the day, the NFLPA is a business, right? Let's just call it what it is. The NFLPA is a business. They have their bottom line. And you know what they have to do? They have to figure out what the structure of their business model is in order to be able to impact their bottom line. They have employees. They got to maintain a payroll. They have to run their business like a business. And the worst thing you could do is bite the hand that feeds you. At the end of the day, they have one business and one business alone, and that business is to be the cartilage in between the NFL and the owners and the players. And I always wonder, why, and you do have a lot of former players that are a part of the PA. You do. But I've always wondered, why is it like you get a random person like DeMaurice Smith? Like, what is his representation to the football community? You know what I mean? Like, if you don't understand the football community, how can you actually represent it in a way where you understand how we feel, or you understand the approaches of what we're a part of? If you're not relating to us, how can you represent us in the best manner possible?
So we were making the point last week when DeMaurice Smith's book came out, and he's got all these excerpts about it. And in one of them, he talked about Aaron Rodgers and basically blasted Aaron Rodgers and just said, I got a text from Rodgers, and I something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing, can I walk into traffic instead? And my thought on that was, okay, this is one of the stars of the league. You represent the stars of the league, so to speak, or so we thought, and he wants to talk to you, and your response is, I'd rather walk into traffic. That's not how that should work. J.C. Tretter, and this was one of the details that came out when these transcripts were made public by Pablo Torre. J.C. Tretter, when the discussion was about Russell Wilson and his negotiations and trying to get a guaranteed deal with the Broncos, basically ripped into Russell Wilson. You're supposed to represent these guys. You're not supposed to be burying them behind their back and complaining about them behind their back. It's supposed to be a union to where you're all in this together. And then you see this stuff come out, and it reminds me almost like of politics. And I can remember my brother told me this when I was younger, and I always remember this. And I kind of asked him, because I didn't really understand, Democrats, Republicans. Like, I didn't understand any of that stuff. But he basically just said to me, there are no Democrats or Republicans. It's the same a-hole in a different suit.
Dang.
And I still remember
Claiming
that.
a different color.
And I still remember that to this day. And when I see stuff like this, I go, oh, so you're all in this together. Like, there is no NFLPA and owners. This would make me question everything that I heard from the NFLPA.
And you should. You have your team representatives. They sit in the meetings. You want to have a problem with somebody who's enlightened enough to know that it's just a bunch of BS? Like, we're here, and it's like literally it's all for show. Like, let's get all of the reps from all the teams. Let's take a picture. Like, oh, let's post it. NFLPA, we care. Oh, turf wars, da-da-da, this, that, and the other. Okay. It's like all for show. To me, it's always been all for show. And so when you get down to a moment where DeMaurice Smith actually, in a moment of thinking that he's being candid and exposing a personality like Aaron Rodgers is really exposing you.
Yes.
Like, do you understand when you wrote that and people are going to read that they're going to be like, well, why would Aaron Rodgers feel that way? Aaron Rodgers is a lot of things. One thing you're not going to mistake him for is being an idiot. He's not dumb. He's not a dumb dude. So if he gets up in emphatic fashion or whatever it is that he said, takes a deep breath and leaves, exits the meeting, you're basically exposing the fact that this man is there and he's sitting there listening to what y'all are saying and what y'all are talking about, and it's a big-ass waste of time. It's all for show. Log the hours, log the minutes, so that you can add it to the business plan. Here's what we did. Here's the summary. We hit all the line items. We could say we talked to you guys about it. We discussed it. Checking off the boxes. You're going to do, in this scenario, I've always felt, this has always been my person, and I hate to do it because there are some really, really fine dudes, and I always mention their names, you know, from Nolan Harrison to Andre Collins to, you know, Carl, why do I always blank on Carl's name? Anyway.
Carl Lewis.
It's not Carl Lewis. Yeah, but anyway, there's always going to be some really, really good people. I remember I used to hit up George Atala. He worked for the PA. I don't know if he's still with them or not. But I would hit certain people up that work for the NFLPA, and I always felt like I was talking to somebody who went through a sales course. And the first thing you realize when you're talking to somebody who's in sales and has been trained and has a history in sales is what's the first thing they're going to do? Manage your expectation. The best people in sales can manage an expectation. So now you've immediately, I bring something your way, issue, topic, can we do this, whatever it may be, manage the expectation. Then once you manage the expectation, you create an under-promise type of deal so that you can over-deliver on the other side of it. And that's what the NFLPA has done to me for as long as I can remember. Like Doug Allen, he's a Penn Stater. Like, great respect in some regards. But I just always felt like, even back to then, when Doug Allen was in there, it's always going to be what moves the agenda of their business model. And until there's some way to figure that out, and that's why I feel like the college aspect of everything that's going on, there's some real hurdles to clear. There's some real barriers to get around in terms of finding a healthy space for how business is going to be done at the college level with these players now that money's involved. Because you see under the surface, very surface, it goes way deeper with this glacier of conversation that we're having, but just immediately under the surface, when you see and hear things like this that we're discussing right now, it ultimately exposes the unseen. Like, we know the known, like, okay, here's a contract. This is how much they're getting. The salary cap is here. This is where it's moving to. These are the players that are making the money. Here's how much you get if you get tagged, this, that, and the other. You see all of those things, but when you start to get into conversations like this, where it's like, wait, you're taking us out of the parameters of what our structure represents. Fully guaranteed contracts do not fit our model. So get that BS up out of here. Don't bring that S our way. Oh, then one owner panics and does it, and now everybody's trying to figure out, what are we going to do from here? What do we do?
And the Players Association is keeping secrets from its players.
There you go. So how are you going to really get to a real solution? How are you really going to get to a real solution to what's going on? You have all these bright minds. Like, we don't have Q on. Q would be able to give us like a real, educated, like, from the legal standpoint of it and all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. You have bright minds that think with that side of their brain and use just the concrete evidence. And then you have other guys that use their experiences and how they feel about people or the things that they collected information-wise. And it's a melting pot of representatives of the players that are a part of these meetings and trying to understand what's going on. And for the life of me, for all the bright minds that I've seen be a part of the PA, if you buy into what the PA preaches and you believe in it, you end up working for them. If you don't, you just end up being a part of it, scratching your head the whole time, trying to figure out why the hell do we have an NFLPA if this is all we're going to get from it?
And if you question that, the PA executive director tells in a book later that he'd rather walk into traffic than talk to you.
How about that?
It's okay. All right.
Because you called him out by getting up and leaving the meeting because you didn't feel like anything got accomplished? Like, why is that?
That's crazy.